Welcome to another episode of the Meat-N-Tater Show. I'm here with my co-host, Tater.
Thirsty Thursday!
I'm Meat, and we're excited to bring you this week's show. We're changing it up a bit for something we're going to call Thirsty Thursday. Today, we're dropping a short video on a broad topic. That way, you guys get to know a little bit more about us.
Bottoms up, everybody. Today, we're going to talk about politics.
Woohoo!
We'll just give you guys some information so when you hear us talk about certain things, you don't throw us into a particular category without kind of knowing a little bit more information about us. So, Meat, why don't you start us off with just whatever you want. We'll start back and we'll just kind of go back and forth on some of these things.
So the way we kind of wanted to approach this was pick a few of the hotter topics that are going around right now, and then kind of give a little background about how we feel about it, and then that'll kind of give you guys a little bit more clarity on the lenses that we will approach issues in the future. And then the first one that we chose to talk about comes with a bit of a caveat in that we're both dudes, so take this with a grain of salt. But the first topic that we're going to talk about is abortion. And so probably I'm more of leaning towards a pro-lifer in that, they're babies kind of thing. So stop killing babies. But on the one hand, a lot of times fetuses aren't viable whenever it comes time to birth them, or somewhere in the pregnancy something happens and the baby's not going to be alive whenever it's born, and it becomes a danger to the mother. So because of things like that, I don't really feel like there can be something that's like a blanket rule, like all abortions are bad or all abortions are good. I think that in the event that the baby is going to harm the mother, it should always be left up to the doctor's discretion. I mean, again, we were talking earlier about county reports, city reports, and independent reports for the Floyd case. Like, those guys are the experts because they're doctors. So just like that situation with abortions, you have to go to a doctor to get it done. It should be up to their discretion to decide, yeah, I can do this abortion because it's going to save your life, even though the fetus isn't viable. Yeah, that's how I feel about it. I'm sure there are some situations where there's a lot more gray area, but again, that should be the doctor, the expert in the situation. It should be up to him to decide that.
Right, and I'm in a similar position with you as well, because I would lean more towards a pro-life stance, because I do feel a certain way about abortions of convenience, because I mean, we're too advanced as a society. We know too much about contraception to be able to prevent pregnancy. If you're going to go to a party and you're going to get drunk, like, again, I'm a dude speaking from a dude's perspective, so this could be very limited. It could sound insensitive to certain people's experiences, and that's not what I'm going for. But I'm just trying to process it as best I can without sounding like an abortion abolitionist, because I don't really fall into that category. I think it's too strict. And I do have another reason for that in a moment. But for this part, like, I don't like the idea of not being held responsible for decisions that you made when you should have been more proactive. Like, should have contraception with you. You should be able, men should be able to listen to the word no. Like, there's just tons of things that go along with abortions of convenience. I'm just not on board with that. I kind of draw a moral line right there, where I don't believe you taking the potential life of another human's existence just for your own convenience is something that I think should be okay. Now, the reason why I'm not a full-on abolitionist is because when it was kind of a hotly debated topic of maybe a year and a half ago, for Oklahoma trying to pass an abolitionist bill here for abortion. I did a little bit of research. I didn't do a ton, like, not high level stuff, but I found some statistics that, and if I can find them, we'll put them in the show notes. But I found some statistics that basically said there are about 5,000 or so women every year that have to make decisions about whether or not to try and keep a baby alive for their own safety, or even for the safety of the baby. And again, there's gray area, and I'm probably not saying this the way that it needs to be said, but I don't think that's 5,000 women. That's not like two. And even then, I think the two women should still have the freedom of a choice of health for themselves and for their family. I just can't jump on the train for full on abolition. Yes, I understand the arguments of like the millions and millions and millions of babies that have been lost to this, but not all of those have been a choice of convenience, because mothers who have to make that decision, I couldn't imagine what it would be like to have a baby conceived in your body, to carry a baby within your body, and to be anticipating nurturing it with your body, and then have to make a decision to terminate that life for your own health and for so that you can be there for your family moving forward. I have a hard time just saying, yeah, just nix it for everybody, just because those experiences are real experiences too.
Right. So basically, it sounds like there's a lot of gray area that shouldn't have rules. So how would you expect people to come up with a way to cover those gray areas?
Freedom of choice, I mean, honestly, is the way you kind of have to stick with it. I don't know how you regulate convenience either. My perspective is, in my mind, I think it has to come down to, is this a medical decision? While there is medicine involved in health, in like there's prenatal care, there's postnatal care, and there's all this other stuff, that medicine is in the generic sense connected to a pregnancy. But if this is not about a health concern and it's not about a life-saving situation, then I think you could probably find a way to regulate that legally to make sure that people aren't just making knee-jerk reaction decisions that affect the lives of a lot of people, or the potential lives of a lot of people.
I guess that probably brings up the question of like people that are, women that end up the victims of sexual assault, things like that, and then they end up pregnant with that guy's baby. And so, yeah, that's the tough part. That's why I think it shouldn't be some blanket statement like if you are assessed to be in good mental health. But even then, that baby didn't choose for that to happen to them either. So this is the part where we say, we're dudes talking about this, so take what we say with a grain of salt here. But
a huge chunk of pink Himalayan salt.
But yeah, I feel like that baby should probably still have a chance to have a life. I mean, that's my take on it, though.
Sure.
I'm not the one carrying the baby around for 9 months.
Absolutely. And what I think would help is also more government funding to local clinics they're not abortion clinics, but they're pregnancy centers. So lots of cities have these, but most people don't know about them. They have like small advertisements on like city bus benches, or maybe one billboard here or there. Like if we could take some funding, because a lot of these places are religious organizations, so religious entities fund them. If we could get some more funding into those places for resources for people, that, yeah, maybe, I mean, in my mind, like, I'm hopeful for this, that maybe someone who has suffered at the hands of someone who raped them and they become pregnant, that maybe there could be resources to transition that baby into adoption. I mean, healthcare for babies is advancing so far that, babies can survive at 26 weeks, which is, I mean, that's amazing that they can keep babies alive after they're, if they're born prematurely that early. So, or excuse me, that prematurely, they can keep them alive. So, I mean, there's tons of advancements. And if we can just get funding to a lot of this stuff, I really think we can narrow down it being I have to live with this. I mean, adoption. I mean, there's so many things that are connected to this that it's not just about regulating abortion. It's also about boosting adoption centers. It's making that process easier, fixing the foster care system. The foster care system is a broken piece of our society. Like, there's just so much that needs to be fixed, that if those things were fixed and funded, that I think you can take away a lot of the gray areas, not all of them, because that's just life. You can't get rid of the gray areas. So
I think I'll probably want to come back to this after we start talking about the election too. So
yeah, sure.
Our next topic that we wanted to talk about was gun control. I'll let you take the lead on this one.
Sure. So I sometimes go between like being the guy that's like, I'm a liberal, a gun-toting liberal, and responsible regulation. So I'm not full on never touch the Second Amendment, just because now I don't have a policy in mind. I don't have a suggestion in mind. So if people want that, we can work on ironing that idea out together. But I do think there are ways that you can responsibly regulate firearms without taking away the Second Amendment right. I know the counter argument all too well, because it comes to me every single time I say that, which is, well, if you make one regulation, you're paving the road for all the regulations. And I understand that, but I am not pro full-on regulation of guns. I have a gun in my home, and I will defend myself in my home if I have to. With that gun, I'm planning on buying a gun because the world is batshit crazy. So I'm planning on buying a gun that I can take with me places. So like, I'm not anti-gun, but I'm also a responsible person. So
You know what you're gonna buy yet?
I don't. I have so many people like, hey, you should get this, and then the next person's like, no, definitely don't get that, and then the third person's like, well, both of those people are stupid. You shouldn't get either of those guns that they suggested. This is the one you're supposed to get. It's like, okay, what's cheap, doesn't break, and will allow me to defend myself and my family in a pinch if I had to.
Gotcha.
So
Springfield, M&P, those are probably a little bit more affordable. If you want to spend up a little bit, I think Glock is a little bit more reliable, but it is a little generally more expensive. So
what can I get for like $20 and a ham sandwich?
$20 and a ham sandwich that you want to trust your life to, kind of thing?
I mean, haven't you seen Noisy Cricket from Men in Black? I'm sure that's not.
I'd probably just keep the $20 and a ham sandwich handy, and it's like, man, I don't have much, but if you let me go, I'll give you this $20 and a ham sandwich.
Hey, that might be the way to go.
Just keep the ham sandwich handy. Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm all for to kind of wrap all that up. I'm for responsible gun ownership. I'm for training your children responsibly how to be safe around guns. But I'm also against the kind of occultist approach that some people take with the Second Amendment. So I'm in a weird area that I don't really know how to identify myself there.
Gotcha. I'm not going to say I'm like the staunchest 2A proponent that you'll ever find, but I am one of those people that thinks that 2A, the Second Amendment, was enough. I think if it's kind of like the nuclear deterrent, if more people had guns, then I think there would probably be fewer crime or not fewer, like I can English really well, I promise. I can, I think there would be less crime if people were more worried about, well, does my target have a gun kind of instance. Also, you're getting into the gun control stuff being like, if you create one concept of gun control, then you pave the way for more gun control. You know, like towns like Chicago, they have the strictest gun control laws in out of the country, like their top 5. And this past Labor Day weekend, though, was one of their most deadliest. I told you, I promise I can use the English.
Get your wife in here to.
Yeah, right. It was one of the worst weekends as far as gun-related deaths goes. So something like 50 people died, and it was related to gun violence. And so it just doesn't make sense that a town that has the strictest gun control, one of the strictest gun control policies in the country, would have that many gun-related deaths if we're expecting it to do something. So yeah, that's how I feel about that.
Yeah. Well, I mean, in that situation, you know, if you don't have something more universal, I mean, you can easily just drive across the state line. I mean, Chicago, Illinois is not that far from its, you know, a couple of neighboring states there. So just a couple hours will get you to 2 other places that have less strict, you know, rules and regulations on that. Now, I'm ignorant on a lot of the laws, so I'll be happy to be educated on that. And I guess one of the things that I would say that could potentially help with that is like not having your grocery store like have guns in it. You know what
Walmart.
I mean? Yeah. Like let's kind of just something simple to like get that kind of cleaned up. Like just from a mental standpoint, from a social standpoint, let's just have gun stores like that are dedicated to that, and you don't have a lot of this crossover. But that
when they have rollbacks, when Walmart has rollbacks on ammo, dude, it's
You can do a layaway on your 22 long run.
Nah, I don't think you can do layaway on ammo. I'm not sure about that. I'm pretty sure you can't though.
Yeah.
So yeah, our next topic, immigration. I guess you took the lead on the last one, so I'll talk about this one first. Immigration. I don't really have a political belief about this. I think, you know, this is the hippie part of me. We all share the planet. I don't feel like walls are a good thing. I know that the argument there is then why do you lock your doors at night? Well, I mean, there are still crazy people, but when you're talking about millions and billions of people at a time in large numbers, you tend to look at the behaviors of the masses, not just, your neighbors kind of thing. So it's a little bit different there. Like even before they had walls, people still had like tents and stuff that they kept their valuables in. So I'm really of the opinion that, if you, I believe in the general goodness of people. And so I don't think that even like immigration policy should even be a thing. Like I think it should just be cut out. And then if people want to come here, ask them a few questions, figure out why they're here, and then let them in. And then if they start acting like fools, kick them out.
Yeah, I mean, open the borders. I mean, that's I might even be more hippie than you. I'm just like, I mean, come on, like that's just, like, we talk about in not so many terms anymore, maybe, but the American dream is making and paving a way for yourself. And if you don't allow that to continue to happen, then you can really change the dynamic of your society immensely. And here's the thing: if you want to build a wall, like this is 2020. This is not 1520. Like, let's at least update how we do this, right? I'm not saying you like chip them like, your purebred dog, that you get from the pet store. I'm not saying you chip people and, you put tracking devices in them and that kind of stuff. But like, I mean, I try to put this in a way that doesn't sound like I'm a crazy person that's just, got a lot of crack in my nose one day and decided I had this crazy harebrained idea. But just think for a second over the last 10 years of all the unused technology that's been developed that has things that we can use. Like if you're going to build a wall, build a technological wall. So if someone wants to come into America and you're worried about something that they might or might not do, then you equip your front line, which is your cities that are willing to be sanctuary cities. So you have cities that want to be sanctuary cities, then equip them to handle things locally. So a person wants to come across the southern border from Mexico. You say, okay, we're going to let you in. You say you're seeking a job to support your family in Mexico. We're going to let you do that. But you have to have this cell phone. And this cell phone has an app on it where all you need to do until you process your papers to become a full-on American citizen, or until your visa clears or whatever the things are going on, like you're going to check in on this app once a week or once a day, whatever you want to fill in, whatever, politicians would be most comfortable with. You check in on this app, it'll ping your location. And if you're where you're supposed to be, things are good. And if it's not, you miss a check-in time, then we're going to track you down. We'll send you back to, Mexico, or if you came from somewhere further south or you came over on a plane, like you have to go back and you can start over again. But like you could create a very simple technological wall that if people have good intentions, they're going to make sure that phone's charged. They're going to make sure they check in on their app when they're supposed to, and they're going to provide for their family, and they'll be a positive influence on our society.
Yeah. Tater for president.
Yeah.
President Tater reporting for duty.
President Tater for brains, probably, with what people will say about me. So that's kind of where I think we can just let's get creative. Like, just get creative in this whole scenario. We don't have to waste hundreds of millions of dollars on a physical wall when you can properly train people to handle the situation. When you can use technology that's probably just sitting in a warehouse somewhere. I mean, there's probably hundreds of thousands of iPhone 5s just hanging out somewhere, and not just in your grandpa's pocket because he doesn't want to update. Because if it's worked for the last 5 years, it's going to work now. So
6 months. Yeah, it's worked for the last 6 months. Why do I need another phone? The iPhone 23. Right. Golly. Yeah. No, that's a good idea. I like it. But I do think you're a crazy person because Twinkies were on your list of things that need to go. So, yeah.
Dangerous.
So yeah, that brings us to the election that's coming up this year in November. Trump is the incumbent GOP, so obviously he's going to be on the ticket. It seems like Joe Biden is going to be the front runner for the Democratic Party, and then
if he remembers, if he doesn't go insane.
If he remembers to show up, yeah. And then the Libertarian Party candidate is Joe Jorgensen. So, out of those three, how do you feel about him, and what is your prediction for?
Well, I would like to just say Mr. Jorgensen, thank you for just getting your name out there.
It's a lady actually.
Oh, he said Joe. So says you how much I paid attention to the Libertarian Party
J
because
J O. Yeah.
because that's how far my mind is made up that Trump is probably going to be reelected. That Libertarian Party,
You
like,
think so?
God bless you guys for existing, but you're never gonna make it. You're just never gonna make it. We don't really have a third party. I'm sorry. So,
Yeah.
my opinion, it really is that I think Joe Biden is kind of building a lot of ammunition at the moment for being able to kind of address a lot of the craziness that's happening in the world right now. And we can, there's always, of course, debate around these things, but the handling of coronavirus, the handling of or his inflammatory Trump's inflammatory language about the things surrounding the George Floyd situation. And this is probably strong language, but deploying National Guard troops against American civilians. Like, these are the talking points that are going to come up for the Democratic Party in their debates. Joe, again, I apologize. Ma'am, I am so sorry for thinking you were a dude and not knowing who you were. But there may even be talking points for other angles as well. And so while I say all of that, while I think there could be a lot of ammunition building up for all of the Trump opponents, I don't think it's going to be enough. I think ultimately what this is going to do, what's going to happen is we're going to have so much instability that people are going to be conservative or moderate, which is what typically happens, and there's not going to be much change. And so I think Trump's just going to he's just going to make it in. He's just going to make it in, and we're all going to die.
Oh, very bleak outlook. All right, cool. Yeah, so Biden is a man that just cannot seem to get out of his own way to me.
You ain't black.
Yeah, that, and just, I don't know. We'll leave him in the show notes, but I can't think of what it is off the top of my head. But every time I see that guy pop up in the news, it's just like, okay, what did Uncle Joe do this time?
Whose kid did he touch?
Yeah. Oh God. So that, coupled with the fact that I don't think there's only one time that the incumbent president hasn't been reelected, and he knew he wasn't going to be reelected, so he didn't even run, and that was LBJ with all of the Vietnam War stuff going on. So and somebody can fact check me on that one. That may not be the truth. That's the most recent one in my memory. So, and that was in the 60s. So in light of all of that, I think that Trump has probably the best chance of winning. But I think that people are really, really ready for change. And so they're probably looking at, because of everything that's going on, like you were talking about, Joe Biden is building up a lot of ammunition. But in addition to Joe Biden building up a lot of ammunition, like, these things are going to be very fresh in people's minds at the time the election rolls around. They may not blame any of the current parties for what's going on. So I don't think they'll blame the Republicans or the Democrats for the coronavirus. I do think that they'll probably blame Trump for the National Guard stuff going on. And that will be, I think, a very large detriment to his voter base. I don't know if it's going to be big enough to really impact the results, but I do remember that Trump actually lost the popular vote whenever he won the election the last time around. So it tells me that, people weren't really ready to vote for him, and they may still be looking for a way out of a Trump reelection. So I have very high hopes for this year for maybe if not for a libertarian to win the election, for a libertarian to amass more votes than they've ever amassed before, and to get some kind of national spotlight for that. So that maybe if it's not this election, this go around, maybe the next election, the libertarians will have a bigger piece of the action, so that real change can be implemented. But
so you're saying there's a chance?
I'm saying there's a chance because her platform, Dr. Jo Jorgensen's platform, is outstanding, I think. And I think it's just kind of a tribute to what libertarians want. Libertarians, for a lot of you guys that maybe don't know, they are like a limited form of government, what Republicans used to say they were for. But, a lot of people see Republicans as the new fascist party. So libertarians want to end the war overseas. They want to end the drug war. they want to abolish the ATF, and they want to focus on immigration reform. And then because they're doing a lot of things where they would cut spending in places like overseas wars and the war on drugs domestically, freeing up that kind of funding would go towards stuff that we were talking about earlier, like the abortion clinics, or not the abortion clinics, but what did you call them? Pregnancy clinics? Centers. Yeah, pregnancy centers. So it could help fund that stuff. Immigration policy reform, like talking about finding all those phones and building the infrastructure to be able to do all that stuff where you're they're technically undocumented, but they're here. And,
right.
Being able to reform that with technology, you would need money to do that, even though the implementation would be a lot cheaper than looking for something state of the art. You still need money. So it would be good to have somebody that wants to cut spending elsewhere to implement changes that are better for people in the long run, I think. So I don't usually vote in elections, but I may vote this time around because I've never seen Oklahoma as a blue state on the little electoral college voter map,
Mm-hmm.
I don't think I've ever seen it pop up as a blue state. They don't even finish counting our votes and the state's red on the map. So
yeah. Two votes go in and they're both red. And right. It's like, okay, we know where this is going.
So honestly, I haven't voted in a long time. And so I may actually vote this year because Joe Jorgensen 2020, hashtag JoJ2020, if you guys want to look it up.
Well, I think I've never been a blue no matter who guy, especially when, I was a Bernie supporter. So, if that changes anybody's mind about how they view this podcast or how they listen to my opinion, that might. Okay. So, for full transparency, I tend to lean a little socialist on some things, but don't hold that against me because
it's too late.
I have said that I am pro Second Amendment, so maybe that's my get out of jail free card for this discussion.
I don't know. One of these things is not like the other.
Yeah. So I, when he was bounced, and then Elizabeth Warren was kind of bounced, I was like, okay, well, I'm not in on Joe Biden. I'm just not, and I haven't been convinced. He's just not. He's not much different in my mind, because here's the thing that he came out and recently said is that he wanted to have a national presence to regulate local police. It's like that's fascism, like that. Like you're looking to take over your local municipalities, which are supposed to be able to regulate how they need to, without federal government oversight.
If you're liberal, it's communism. So.
Oh, okay. Well, you know what? I'm going to get these words confused because to me, I'm just like it's all bad. It's all bad. So. The government says we're going to take over your local government, or the federal government says we're going to take over your local government. I am like, hold on.
It's there for a reason, guys. You can't do that.
Right. So when Joe Biden said that, kind of in response to Donald Trump, I was like, okay, I'm definitely backing away from my blue no matter who stance that I wasn't even convinced of anyway. So you might be getting somebody to join you in the JoJo campaign.
Yeah. Nice. Conversion experience.
Yeah. I have them all the time.
Here we go. 2020 is shaping up to be a big year.
That's right.
She could be the first woman president, man. That would be crazy, I think.
I'd be okay with it. Even if, like you were saying, even if we can just get people something different to think about, because, I don't like being pinned between two bad options.
Yeah. Rock in a hard place.
Or a swamp and a sewer drain.
Very orange rock. Yeah, sewer drain. There you go. All right. Well, I don't know what I was going to say there. I'm going to have to cut this part out. Is that everything we wanted to talk about?
It is. Yeah, I think you covered it all. Actually, glad you said the election because I forgot about that part.
Okay, cool. Awesome. All right. Well, everybody, that's our show. Thanks for tuning in. Please subscribe to the show if you liked it, comment, share it with everyone rate it, review our show, and then check out all of the sources that we mentioned. Check them out in the show notes down below.
And also, don't forget to follow us on Twitter at Meat-N-Tater Show. And until next time, keep those tinfoil hats polished and ready. Maybe with a couple stickers on them. This is Meat saying, don't let the lizard people bite. See ya. Bye.